Alpha, Gamma, Zeta, Omega. What's left? Hello guys, this is UniversalGiant, and welcome to the finale of AM2R. We made our way through this enormous cave system last time, destroyed ourselves some of the fully grown Omega Metroids in the nest, and we've wound up at this genetics research laboratory, apparently? At least according to the game's save file. Not quite sure what to expect in a place like this. Aside from 9 Metroids, I suppose. Ah! Yep, this time they're the larval form. Yep, the genetics laboratory, suspended above an abandoned city or the remains of a laboratory. Scanners confirmed there was extremely sophisticated equipment to be found, along with the scientific data of incalculable magnitude. Only stasis tanks are left. Organic traces within suggest genetic research and DNA manipulation. Biogenetic substances of an unknown age coat the laboratory's walls. So just like most of the larval Metroids we've encountered in all of our adventures, these things go down with a good Ice Beam Super Missile combo. To try to preserve supers as best you can, unlike the Metroids we've been facing up to this point, the larval ones should drop supers if you... Oh yeah, this will happen sometimes. It's just a bit annoying if you get stuck in these things because they don't always cooperate with you when you try to get them off. Because you'll pop up and then you'll try to shoot them. And just have an overall bad time. So, like, if you plan out what you're doing, plan out your movements well enough, it's not too much of an issue to deal with them. Especially if you know where they're coming from. But I'm an idiot sometimes. And I wouldn't have it any other way. There's only one Metroid left, though. And that music doesn't fill me with hope. Meet the Queen Metroid. The only Metroid organism naturally capable of producing offspring. The Queen is the heart of the species and mother of every Metroid born on SR-388. Her role in the hive has hindered her mobility, yet encouraged development of a long neck and massive head to strike at a distance. Her cell structure indicates she is heavily aged, possibly as old as the lab she settled in. The years have reinforced her torso to impenetrable levels. The Queen's genetic coding is distinct from the other Metroids, and she may have gone through a unique life cycle to attain her form. So this thing is indeed the final boss of the game. And her pattern for attacking is relatively straightforward. She'll lunge at you after roaring at you, then she'll fire out a couple of plasma-looking things that will give you power-ups if you need them. And I usually like to hold on to a couple of these for the upcoming stages of the fight, because it's a little bit more difficult to get these power-ups there. And while I'm doing this, I figure I might as well walk you through the different steps that I went through to originally fight this thing, because it took me a while to figure out what I was doing. You may see how easy it is for me to destroy the plasma-looking things to get the power-ups at this point, since I have all of the beams. But you may also remember I mentioned that I went through the game originally without the plasma beam. And the plasma beam cannot penetrate those enemies, so you're lucky if you're able to break one or two of them if you don't have the plasma beam. The reason why this is so important is when I was fighting this thing originally, I didn't think you could get power-ups from those things, at least not reliably, because without the plasma beam you really can't. So that was a challenge in and of itself. She destroys walls, by the way. So you may remember previous parts of the laboratory we've been through. Yeah, we're going to be seeing quite a few of them, actually. So, figuring out you could destroy these things to get power-ups was actually quite an important thing for me to have figured out, as it turns out. But the other thing was figuring out where to hit this thing. Because it seemed to make sense to me that it's really painful to get hit in the mouth, but apparently the Queen Metroid doesn't think so. So firing missiles into her mouth didn't exactly do anything. Come down here where I can hit you. There we go. That was one issue. So I tried hitting her pretty much everywhere. Specifically in her bright glowing head. Because usually in video games, if you see something glowing, it's probably a good place to shoot it. But not so with the Queen Metroid. In fact, her head is only invulnerable to damage when it's glowing. So you may have noticed I'm intentionally not shooting it when it's flashing. That's the reason why. So I tried hitting pretty much every other appendage of its body. Except for its head when it wasn't flashing. And that took a couple of tries for me to figure out what to do. And then there were also times when, again, I didn't know how to deal with the plasma-looking things. So what I would do is I'd try to stay up into here, and I guess I'll show on the next batch of them what I did. Because I didn't realize you get powers-ups from them, I was just trying to deflect them away from me, and if you just spin attack up in the... I'm not sure why I call it a spin attack. But if you just screw attack up in the corner, you'll deflect those plasma things away from you. So it's an easy way to get rid of them if you just don't want to deal with them. But the fact that they give you power-ups is incredibly useful. I don't think we have anywhere else to go. Well, only one thing left to do here. Now, fun fact, you could just lay a bunch of regular Morph Ball bombs, and I think even if you lay one all the way off to the side before she tries to eat you, it would still count as killing her. But you wouldn't get this glorious little spectacle at the end if you did that. And where's the fun in that? But our Metroid count has not hit 0 yet. I was pretty sure the Queen was the last Metroid. You may remember, when we passed through the hallway below, there was one Metroid egg remaining. And without the Queen, this baby thinks we're its mother. And luckily enough for us, it's feeling hungry. So we're gonna need this little fella's apple to make our way back home. There aren't any enemies left. Queen Metroid's defeated. All we have left to do is make it back to our ship and get off the planet. I really like the serene music that plays at the end section here. It's not like other games, or all of the other Metroid games, where the end is just our... It's a frantic search for an escape to the planet. You're usually timed. This one, just nice, peaceful ending. You came here, you did what you had to do, and whether you wanted to or not, you made a friend. And with that, our mission on SR-388 is complete. And that'll do it for another Metroid 2 remake, AM2R. When I first beat this game on my own, there was one particular line that came to mind for me. And even after all this time, I still think best describes my feelings on this remake. I challenge Nintendo to remake Metroid 2 for the Game Boy better than AM2R did. I've mentioned in a number of previous projects, particularly Soul Silver, just how difficult it is to take an existing game or an existing franchise and remake it, because you have to finally balance too similar to the original with not new enough to engage the modern audience. It's a very delicate balance that needs to be maintained to do a remake justice, and I think AM2R is the perfect example of a game that managed to do that. Now, you could also say they had a lot more freedom considering the limitations of the original Game Boy and what they were able to do with it technologically. But a lot of the flaws I had with AM2R were strictly because of limitations in the original game that they wanted to stay true to. And it still managed to feel like a proper modern 2D Metroid game. And I'd also like to say, to those of us that think the Metroid franchise has gone astray in the last decade or so, show Nintendo that you still appreciate this kind of game. Metroid 2, among a number of the other 2D Metroids, are available on different consoles via Virtual Console. Definitely worth a buy if you haven't played them before. And it's really the only way you can show Nintendo you still support this kind of game.
The last Metroid is in captivity. The galaxy is at peace.
But with that, our adventure in Metroid 2 is complete. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you next mission.